We're going to start off with the Browns blowing it versus the Jets as Coach predicted. So we got that part right. It seems perfectly set up for Stefanski to get fired. Sports Illustrated running articles about it. Lots of other outlets. Literally every single comment on the Browns YouTube channel on Stefanski's press conferences saying how they've never wanted a coach to get fired so badly. They lost to a team with 54 passing yards. Dude said it's like humiliation ritual. What do you know? Right, so coach would have told you to take the under, certainly on passing yards, because he told you that Gabriel wasn't going to move the ball, even without Sauce Gardner, and that the Browns would lose. So we got that part of the prediction right. Now is the important part, which is he absolutely has to get fired, and they need to hire Belichick immediately. There's absolutely no margin for error here. Coach has to be 100% on the money. Every win matters at this point. No more fucking around. Bill's got to get in the building to start winning some games for the Brownies. Right, period. So check this out. You saw what happened to Doug Peterson when he waited too long to bench Wentz. So what do you know? It's funny they're bringing that up. Right, Kevin still hasn't benched Dylan Gabriel. Right, so Peterson gets fired for not benching Wentz. We've got Peterson coming to be the offensive coordinator for the Browns with Bill Belichick and Schwartz. So let's see. And also interesting that Kevin will not stop repeating, we got to do better, which is a classic Andy Reidism, who is currently 67 years old. We think Bill Belichick's Browns will beat Andy Reid's Chiefs in the playoffs. Coach is going to make a very specific prediction there. We're going with a fumble-rooski. If you'll think back a little bit ago, the Detroit Lions won a game on an intentional fake fumble, basically, right? And if you remember the Chiefs, Andy Reid and Mahomes with the bundle-rooski commercial for State Farm. So Coach is saying a fumble-rooski, Belichick over Reid. Coach is also saying with Belichick just missing his window for revenge over the Patriots, he is certainly going to face off against the Patriots in the wild card. The Patriots will win the division. The Browns will get in as basically the last wild card spot with 10 wins. Assuming Belichick gets hired this weekend, if we have to wait one more week, we're going to have to look for a wild card spot with 9 wins, which Coach doesn't feel nearly as good about. But, gosh, sorry, that was a lot I know. As far as specific predictions, we think the Broncos are going to beat the Colts in the playoffs, and at that point, the Broncos will have extended their longest home winning streak, which is already double digits. They have the longest home winning streak in the NFL. They're going to be talked about as unbeatable at home when the Browns come to visit. So that'll be perfect. That's why nobody will believe in them, even after beating the Chiefs. Right? The Broncos will look like the hot team, and nobody wants to go to Denver. So let's see. Anything else? Loss to the 1-7 Jets. You can't even make this up. Well, that's weird because Coach told you it was going to fucking happen. I hate that phrase more than anything, I swear. They changed the script. I literally heard that one today, too. They changed the script after they scored the points early. They literally said that about the Browns game specifically. Broncos hold the NFL. Yeah, we already talked about that. Sophia Lillis is, Ellen Page / Elliot Page. Right, so Coach let you do a side-by-side against. There's Elliot Page, Sophia Ellis. I didn't get more pictures, but it's really obvious. Just look at them for 2 seconds. You got to be an idiot to not see it. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so Pete Carroll. Everybody's saying Belichick's too old to coach, right? Pete Carroll is 74. All right? Andy Reid's 67. So we have 67-year-old and 73-year-old facing off with the fumble-rooski. Jonathan Taylor of the Colts in Germany today. If you'll remember, the Detroit Lions had a German fan announce one of their draft picks. In Germany, Jonathan Taylor was announced as having joined a list with only Barry Sanders and Jim Brown. How curious it's only those two, no Walter Payton or, Eric Dickerson, something like that, right? Specifically the two that we think are facing off in the Super Bowl. UNC basically did exactly what Coach thought they were going to do, which is win a low-scoring game. This is a very Stefanski-esque score. we want Belichick's hire to be criticized. Like, they don't need defense. Why would you get a defensive coach? The Browns should have got an offensive coach, blah, blah, blah. Right? So that part plays in well. Coach predicted that the Jets would beat the Browns 20-15 as well. It wasn't quite that score. I think it was like 27-17. That sounds right. I'll have to look again. Jordan Hudson with a banned necklace. Hopefully that's a hint that Bill Belichick's about to get banned from the NCAA, of course. According to their lore, it's because she's been banned from the UNC sidelines. Very interesting that North Carolina's Simpson stripped Brown, right? Of all the players they could have got a fumble off of, they got Brown, the guy we got going to the Browns. Let's see. Also, Syracuse's coach is Fran Brown, right? And of course, that's where Jim Brown went and Ernie Davis. Let's see. They're asking if UNC's heading to bowl eligibility. Coach says yes, but it's going to be with Steve Belichick and Mike Lombardi. Coach thinks Belichick will leave them in good shape and they'll do well, but he's going to be criticized for jumping ship. Saw this clip that this is the future of football, and it shows an old-timey clip where they're throwing a bunch of laterals. Coach already thought they're going to be opening up the game a lot with more laterals because with the kickoff formation, it just lends to a lot more like set plays, like end arounds and stuff like that. So coach thinks that's going to be a big thing. Kaylee Cuoco is Abby Elliott. Okay, so there's Abby Elliott, Kaylee Cuoco. Antonio Brown extradited on attempted Bobby Shmurda. At the same time, Antonio Gates is accused of being involved in rigged poker games and may get dragged into the rigged sports betting allegations as well. So Antonio and Antonio, both in the news for the wrong reasons. Bad time to be an Antonio. Let's flip over to the NFL, look at all the results. Broncos versus Raiders. That went pretty much exactly how coach expected. But he didn't want to call it because he really couldn't tell you which way it was going to go, just said it was going to be ugly. Okay, and the Raiders could win, but there's no real reason for them to. But I certainly was telling you, even though I didn't go on camera and say it, but I was telling you the Broncos were anything but a sure thing. They did end up winning, but it was ugly, right? So Bo Callahan in the movie Draft Day, when he gets hit, he gets thrown off his game. The Raiders have Max Crosby. Coach didn't watch the game, but he's thinking that's probably what happened, assuming they, considering they only scored 10 points. And the Broncos didn't play super great last week. The Raiders did in a very close loss. Broncos had a very close win. And then, playing each other on 4 days rest and being division rivals, I thought it might be just enough for the Raiders, but I'm guessing they still haven't turned to Kenny Pickett. They need Kenny Pickett if they want to have any sort of success. Geno Smith is not the answer. So Colts, Falcons. Coach watched that game. He was actually making you a video. We're remaking that video now mostly. Coach woke up at like 10 a.m. and was making this video for you and was talking about the German game in real time. But Coach tried to edit it down, basically cut it in half to make it more watchable for you. And the file got corrupted. I just tightened the wrench too hard. YouTube doesn't want anything to do with it. Neither do any of my other apps. So there's just no other way but to redo it. So that's what we're doing now. The Colts were ahead. Coach said they'd hold on and win. The Falcons went ahead, and then the Colts tied it up, forced overtime, and then won in overtime after the Falcons got the ball first. So they made Coach sweat a little bit. You didn't get to hear the real-time reaction, but they're calling that the most exciting game of the season, pretty much. Coach thinks not a coincidence that it was the premier game. Must have been if it was on in his area when he's in Redskins country. Why are we watching Falcons-Colts? I thought that was random as hell. So there's that. Jets, Browns, we already know. So 27-20. Wow, the Browns scored 20 points. Can you fucking believe it? I'll bet we had a defensive touchdown. Literally bet my life. Let's take a look here. Player stats. Coach didn't watch this game. I'll be honest. No, it wasn't going to go good while I watch. We had an interception. 8 points kicking. 8 points kicking. So it sounds like 2 field goals and 2 extra points, which would certainly give them 20. Now let's look at the offense here. 2 receiving touchdowns. So Dylan Gabriel threw the 2 touchdowns and didn't have any interceptions to his credit, but only completing about 50% of his passes, hardly getting any yards, not even 200, which incredible. They continued it. Wow. What happened to Judkins today? You don't want to see that. No matter how much you hate Kevin, we need Judkins to be the man. But with running backs, it's like impossible to reel off a 100-yard game every fucking game, especially as a rookie. He was bound to regress at some point. The Jets seemingly like always have a nice front seven, weirdly. So I'm gonna chalk it up to that. Let's get back to the rest of the league. Okay. I saw my Lions took care of business against the Commanders. That was another one Coach picked for you. I actually ended up making more picks than I remembered. So glad that one panned out and they like smoked them. And Saints Panthers. I think Coach went Panthers. I don't think I would have taken the Saints. We didn't really make picks, like I said. Patriots, Buccaneers. We think the Patriots are going to win the division, so that's not surprising. Ravens beating the Vikings, that sucks, but is what it is. Just pull another game ahead of the Brownies. The only real surprise of the week, I think, for anybody, unless you were super shocked by the Ravens-Vikings thing, which was mildly surprising. The Dolphins beating the Bills 30-13. Definitely shocked Coach. Coach would have called the Giants and Bears a toss-up, so no real surprise either. But without Scatabo, it's tough to take the Giants right now. Texans taking care of business at home against the Jaguars was oddly surprising with how terrible they have been this year. But the Jags didn't play great last week. Seahawks beating the Cardinals by a lot. That's with no Kyler Murray. There's our Lions. The Rams whooped up on the Niners. The Steelers have 3 points at halftime. In the Jerome Bettis game, we like that. So that's very interesting. Coach would have told you, back whichever team has the more entertaining power back. Because it's probably what that one's about. And then tomorrow night, we got Eagles-Packers. Brazil Revenge. That's a nice game. Does Coach want to pick Monday night? I feel like the Packers could really use a bounce-back game. And, I could totally see maybe Philly beating them in the playoffs or maybe the Lions beating them in the playoffs. I don't really know. But that one's definitely going to be entertaining to watch. Coach says it could go either way. But the Packers are probably hungrier for it. Let's switch over to college football, then we'll call it. So no surprises. Nope, nothing exciting. Indiana with a big scare. So Coach picked their QB for Fernandez, I can't fucking remember, to win the Heisman, Mendoza, because of Fernando Nation, the Dodgers pitcher. Right, of course, Dodgers won the championship, World Series. So he had an 80-yard drive right at the end, capped with a touchdown to put them ahead. So that probably helped his Heisman candidacy a lot. Coach was asked in the comments a while back who he thought, and that's who he said. So that's looking a lot better now. The Dodgers have done their thing, etc. Ole Miss with a shutout was against nobody. I thought Ohio State might have a little bit of trouble at Purdue, but they coasted. Miami bouncing back with beating down Syracuse. Wow, Oregon really had trouble in Iowa, only winning by 2 points. That's not too inspiring. Vanderbilt, number 13, needed overtime to finish off Auburn. Number 20, Virginia losing. Oh my God, that's so fucking huge, dude. That's so huge. We need ACC teams losing bad. There's so many ACC teams with one loss. The Mustangs need all the help they can get. The only reason we have any shot in hell is because we only have one conference loss. The other 2 losses were out of conference. Or we'd have absolutely no chance. We got 2 games left going against an ACC foe. I believe they're still in the ACC. In Louisville, who is ranked. It could be a huge boost for us. We pretty much have no choice but to win the conference tournament to get our ticket into the championship or into the playoffs. But what Coach likes is this seems like the exact type of team you don't want in there. You know what I mean? They're kind of some dogs. I like what I've seen so far. No criticisms. Now, let's see. Oh, fuck. Fuck. Louisville just dropped. They're probably not going to be fucking ranked now. Damn it. Overtime by 3 points. Hopefully the ranking doesn't matter. So I don't know exactly how the ACC tournament works. That's the only reason I'm even a little bit worried, but I'm going to guess that's a nothing burger. But we always want to beat the better team. So, but at least they're beatable, and we need wins. So there's that, but not what we expected. So that one's a little bit weird. Notre Dame blowing out Nate. All right, gang. So the winner of the ACC gets an automatic bid to the college football playoffs to compete for the championship, right? And they're running articles right now that like the ACC proves that automatic bids for conference champions is a bad idea. And they had a 3-loss team get in there last year with Clemson. Coach says for sure that's good news for us. Like that's set up perfectly for an ACC team to win it. We obviously believe it's going to be the Mustangs. Now, we have a bye week and then 2 games. Okay? Obviously, we cannot lose those 2 games. And we need to be in the top 2 teams to get into the conference championship. So the way the ACC works, at least, the top 2 teams face off. The winner gets the automatic bid. Everybody else has to hope for some favors from the committee. And considering that if SMU loses even the championship game, that would give them 4 losses. There's no way we're getting selected for the playoffs with another loss. So it's nice we have a bye week before preparing for currently ranked Louisville, who lost a game this week. So were one of the teams who were ahead of us who has now fallen below. So they did us a huge favor. Us beating Miami also knocked them below us because that gave them their second conference loss. SMU has 3 losses, but only 1 conference loss is their saving grace. And everybody in the ACC has at least 1 now that Virginia lost this week. Okay? So what we need is 2 of the 3 teams ahead of us to lose in the next 3 weeks. Either 2 of Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Pittsburgh, right? So either Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Virginia, Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech, Virginia, we don't care which way, right? As long as 2 of those 3 get at least 1 loss. So let's see. Let's look at the schedules the rest of the way, right? So looking at the Cavaliers, who just lost to unranked Wake Forest and only scored 9 points, they have to go to a Duke team who was considered the top team in the conference heading into the season, but has been very disappointing. And then finishing it off with the Commonwealth Cup rivalry against Coach's beloved Hokies, considering the Hokies have done nothing all year, spoiling the Cavaliers season. Sounds like just the ticket, so we may be able to bank on that. Remember, we only need 1 loss. So they're in the same camp with the Stangs, where they only have 2 games left. Right? They have a bye week as well, I guess. But they did themselves absolutely no favors blowing it to Wake Forest. They would have been pretty much a lock. Anything short of losing the last 2 games of the season here, including having a home game, would have put them in there. Now their season's in jeopardy. And I think they were completely undefeated. So falling apart like that sounds very interesting. It is Lawrence Taylor's school after all. So Coach says he definitely would not be trusting UVA right now. But their schedule is certainly the easiest of all of the top 4 ACC teams. I mean, you get 2 unranked opponents. One of them's at home. That's not too bad. And you got a bye week to work with, I believe. No, yeah, a bye week after Duke. So that's Virginia's ticket out. Is basically they win and they're in. They take care of business, they're good. They drop 1, they're doomed. Now on to the Panthers. They have a very tough matchup with top 10 Notre Dame. That could do them in. Okay? then what do you know? They're facing off against the Yellow Jackets. So no matter what, we're getting a loss on one of those three. So that means we only need one of the other two to go down, right? So we don't know which way Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech's going to go, right? But Pittsburgh, by far, having the toughest road, 3 ranked teams to finish the season. The only one's on the road, okay? If I had to call it, I would say Pittsburgh loses to Georgia Tech and wins the other two. So pretty much there's just no way. That would be miraculous if they went out. Now, they would certainly be ranked. They would be a formidable opponent for our Stangs to meet in the conference championship. So Coach says we're definitely not writing the Panthers off just because they have a tough schedule. That could just be building them up as the boogeyman for us, right? But we love that one of Georgia Tech or Pittsburgh is guaranteed a loss, and that Pittsburgh's road is very tough. So Pittsburgh could beat Georgia Tech, then still lose to one of the other 2 ranked teams. And that's all we would need right there, and not even have to worry about UVA doing anything. We just got to face UVA in the finals. But Coach thinks we're going to face Georgia Tech. Here's Georgia Tech's schedule. Of course, we know about the Pittsburgh matchup. They're going to Boston College this weekend. There's almost no way they're going to blow that. Okay? But then they have to finish against Georgia, which Trevor pointed out is basically the rivalry of all rivalries in college football besides the game. So that could very, very well. So basically, Pittsburgh losing to Notre Dame then beating Georgia Tech would be enough. Or what Coach thinks actually is going to happen is that Georgia Tech beats Pittsburgh and then loses to Georgia. And that would have a UVA versus SMU championship as well. We're obviously not sold on the Cavaliers, but we had UVA as a suspicious team in the preseason, of course. The Cleveland Cavaliers, right? We got the Browns going to the Super Bowl. There's reasons to think it could be them, and we really don't have any conspiracy reasons to like Pittsburgh. So it's pretty much a coin flip between Georgia Tech and Virginia, who we're going to get. And Coach says either way makes sense. Either UVA falls apart in embarrassing fashion, and that's a big story, and then we still face a very, very formidable Georgia Tech team, or Georgia, Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech basically take turns knocking each other out while UVA coasts there. Either way, good with me. Let me know your thoughts. I'm sure Trevor's probably going with Georgia Tech. Can't blame him there. But that's definitely a tough schedule.